Welcome to Stop Overthinking, the podcast for overthinkers, people pleasers, and perfectionists who want to feel calm and confident enough to handle whatever life sends your way. I'm your host, Kristen Odegaard, a women's life and mindset coach, lifelong educator, and recovering perfectionist. Welcome back to the Stop Overthinking podcast. This is episode 44, all about those loving feelings. So in the past couple of episodes, I've been talking about how your feelings are a result of your thinking and not other people. And this can be an easy concept logically, but there are some feelings where it just seems more difficult and we have a harder time accepting the idea that others aren't responsible for our feelings or our lack of them. A couple episodes ago, I specifically talked about appreciation and that it's not from others, but from your thinking. And this month being February and it's all things red, pink, love, hearts, and roses, I'm going to talk about loving feelings and some relationships in general. So for today, I'm going to talk about love and your ability to give and receive love. And I invite you to have an open mind and consider some new possibilities about loving feelings. I'm going to propose to you that love is always an option, and it's usually, I don't want to say always, but almost always the best option. Love feels great, and when you withhold love, it feels pretty crappy. What we need to remember is that love is for you and not the other person. Love has a good result. Love doesn't hurt, and withholding love doesn't protect. And we're going to talk about unconditional love being a skill to practice and learn. It's a skill set that we can all learn. So I want you to think about this. If love is always love conditionally, most of us only love if the other person does what we want them to do. Most of us only love if we think the other person is worthy or deserving of love, the better option. And there's no condition to it, and it can always feel good. What if you could make that a skill that you want to get really good at? Think about how your life might change if you loved unconditionally, which means that you feel love towards the other person under all conditions. You can think about that for someone else, but most importantly, think about that for yourself. Unconditional love means you love someone no matter what. You love them when they don't meet your expectations. You love them when they come up short of kindness or respect, and you love them when they get it completely wrong. One of my mentor coaches, Brooke Castillo from the Life Coach School, says, when we remember that contrast is part of the human experience, we stop using it as an excuse not to love someone. I'm going to say that again. When we remember that contrast, that means that everything people do wrong and don't meet our expectations, when they're mean, they're rude, they're crass, or they're unkind, when we remember that that is part of the human experience, we stop using it as an excuse not to love someone. And that's what conditional love is, that we're using excuses not to love someone. And remember, when you don't love someone, you are the one that doesn't feel the love, not the other person, because we can't hand them our feelings. They can't hand us their feelings. The feelings are internal. It's about you. So all of these thoughts are ones that I'm still working on. And it started several years ago, as many of you know, that when I was going through a divorce. And so I was being coached after my divorce, and I was struggling so much with what to feel for my ex-husband. We had been together for over 20 years. He left because he said another woman made him happier. But I had to have contact with him regularly because we were and still are co-parenting 2 children. And I didn't feel the love, right? And so I was talking to my coach, and my coach said, okay, so you're not going to love him. What are you going to feel instead? Angry, mad, resentful, hurt, hate? You can feel any of those, but you are the one that's going to feel all of those horrible feelings. Is that how you want to feel every day? You're the one that doesn't feel good. You're the one that doesn't feel the love. Ugh. Right? So I had to start considering some new thoughts and thinking about a lot of things differently, but thinking about love was one of those. So I started considering the thought that there's never a good reason not to love. It wasn't something I adopted right away, but it was like, what if there's never a good reason not to love? And I had to battle so many thoughts against this, like love makes you vulnerable, and I need to protect myself, and I need to stop loving people in order to be protected because I was feeling hurt and betrayed and rejected. But through months and months of coaching, I kept hearing things like, the more you love, the more you're going to protect, the stronger you're going to be, the more honest you're going to be. Love isn't weak, love is strong, love is fierce. And I would hear that you can love someone and say no. And that's being honest with them. You don't have to spend time with them unless you want to. You can have boundaries and expectations and still feel love. You can love a person because you want to, because that's what you want to feel, regardless of the other person. And my coach and mentors kept emphasizing that practicing loving other people unconditionally lets us love ourselves unconditionally. And I needed that too, because I wasn't loving myself unconditionally. So love is an emotion that causes an action that creates a result. And that result will always be good. And I would argue with examples like, well, someone's cheating, or what if you love someone and they hurt you? That result isn't good. And here's where mindset coaching and seeing how your thoughts lead to your feelings, and those thoughts and feelings drive your actions and get your results. So that's the mindset coaching that I had, that I teach. And this is where it all comes into play. So if, say, I'm talking to my coach and I said, I love this man and he cheated on me and the result was negative. And then my coach would help me see that it wasn't the love that didn't create that negative result. Loving him didn't do that. My love for him didn't cause him to cheat. It was his feelings, his actions, his thoughts that caused the cheating. It wasn't my love that caused that negative result. My result was loving him, and that felt good. When he cheated on me, I had a different thought. Okay. When I would think about that, it was like anger or frustration or excruciating pain or betrayal. It wasn't love. So it wasn't love causing the negative feelings. It was the other things. And I'd say, well, but I wouldn't be, hurt and rejected and feeling betrayed if I didn't love him. I could have protected myself from all of this. And she would say, that's not true. Because the loving doesn't cause the hurt. The reason you're hurt is because your expectation of how they should behave was so different than the reality. Your expectation of being able to count on them to behave a certain way. And that's what was so excruciating painful, is when people don't behave the way we want them to. And then we feel hopeless and out of control. So it's not love. It's the loss of control. It's fear. The love itself doesn't hurt, and it doesn't create a negative result. Withholding love doesn't protect you. It actually does the opposite. So that was so much for me to work on, and I understand that it can be really different than maybe what you have ever heard before, and hopefully you have never been through betrayal and some of that sort of stuff, but you can still think about and analyze how you feel love and whether you use it intentionally, whether you use it as a weapon, whether you use it for guilt for other people, or if you are really just being intentional and trying to feel it yourself. Because unconditional love and the thoughts that create love don't come naturally to us. We have to practice them. So the thoughts that I practiced were things like, we all deserve love 100% of the time. I deserve love 100% of the time. Withholding love towards someone because you don't think they deserve it doesn't work. You don't punish someone by not loving them. You only are punishing yourself. It's your feeling. You're the one who's feeling the pain instead of the love, right? Because we can't hand it off to the other person. Like, I feel crappy, I want you to feel crappy. But it doesn't work that way. So if you're choosing not to love someone, that's fine. doesn't mean that they're necessarily feeling it. This is about you. Your feelings are about you. So how do you want to feel? How do you want to show up every day? Because the other person, their feelings are going to be caused by their own thoughts. And as much as you want to try and manipulate or guilt or treat someone a certain way so that they will think and feel a certain way, it's still up to them. When we love, we are the ones that are benefiting, not the other person. Yes, feeling that love is going to lead to actions that express love to other people. And it may be we are acting more kind and helpful. But how the other person interprets that is still up to them. It may or may not be well received. Loving is always an inside job. And it's also a hard truth that you've probably heard before, that if you can't love someone else unconditionally, it's going to be extremely difficult for you to love yourself unconditionally. Because for whatever reason, our most hating and loathing is usually our own self-loathing. What we hate and dislike and get frustrated in other people is usually something that we recognize in ourselves. Byron Katie says that every judgment is really just a projection, just something that you see within yourself and recognize in someone else. And that's true for negative things that you see in other people and also positive things. So as you love yourself more, as you learn unconditional love for yourself, what you will notice is that everybody else can catch a break too. It's easier to love people when you allow them to be human, when you allow them to have flaws, when you allow yourself to have flaws. And I've talked about this before. Sometimes other people's best is frankly terrible. But I do believe that most people are doing the best they can, even if it's terrible. We can love people anyway. We can treat them kindly because you want to. That's how you want to feel. That's how you want to be. You want to show up as loving instead of angry and resentful. And that's a choice that you can make intentionally every single day. It's also a hard truth that sometimes we love people and they don't love us back. And maybe you experienced this like as a middle school or high school crush. It was intense, but it didn't mean that we had to stop loving or liking them. And I usually get pushback and people will say, well, if I keep loving them, then it's going to hurt because they don't love me back. But remember, it's not the love that hurts. It's the rejection. It's the unmet expectations. It's they're not acting the way you want them to. Not getting love back isn't really the issue. People will say that they love things all the time that doesn't love them back. People will love music and it moves them, but it doesn't love them back. It's about the feeling that you get. People will say that they love art or certain food, and that doesn't love us back either. It's about the feelings that we get. So not being loved back isn't the issue. Our expectations are in check because I don't expect chocolate chip cookie dough to love me back. So I'm not disappointed. I'm not feeling rejected when I don't feel the love back from my cookie dough, right? So love for each person is an internal experience. And you get to choose. When I feel love, I do certain actions, like I'm more kind and respectful and helpful. I like that. I like showing up that way. I don't always get the results from the other person, but I'm feeling and acting how I want to. And that is the ultimate benefit of feeling love. So as I said, I don't do this perfectly. But I can tell you that my life is so much better for me to choose love, or at least like, or maybe it's acceptance. You can't quite get to love yet, over the alternatives, because it's about how I feel. Another aspect of love that I want to talk about and share is about loveability. Loveability is, I'm talking about your ability to love. So a lot of this is us thinking that if somebody doesn't love us, that there's something wrong with us. And what was so helpful for me was to recognize that it has nothing to do with me. Remember, it's another person. So if they're not loving you, it's them. It's their ability to love. We as individuals are 100% lovable, and we can choose that. And this is one of the most important things that I learned through coaching, because so many of us go around in our lives trying to be more lovable. We try and increase other people's ability to love us. We try and make it easy for them to love us by saying certain things or acting a certain way. We try to increase somebody else's ability to love. And sometimes we feel like we're really effective at that. And sometimes we can't help someone with their inability to love. And again, so helpful to me. Would have been amazing to know as I was growing up. Like as a teenager, if I would have known, hey, when there are crappy people in your life, it doesn't have to do with me. It's their inability to love, because I am lovable. They don't have to love me back. And that's not about me, remember, because these feelings are internal. Their inability to love has nothing to do with you. Your lovability is absolute. Your lovability is given. You don't need to change one single thing to be more lovable. Right? So going back to some of these objects or things that people love, and it can make a little bit more sense. So think about a rose. Maybe you really love roses or flowers. So think about that. What makes a rose lovable? If somebody loves roses, they're going to love the rose. You can't change it to make it more lovable. It just is. And it's something that I feel internally. I love watching sunsets. It's not going to love me back, but it's what I feel. And the sunset, the roses, the music, the food, whatever it is, not loving me back doesn't make me less lovable. And that's the same thing with other people as well. Our feelings are internal. You being loved or not loved isn't about you. It's about the person doing the loving. Your lovability has to do with my capacity to love you and not the other way around. So if you and I are in a room, how much I love you depends on not how lovable you are. It depends on my capacity to love you, my desire to love you. So if you didn't feel that love from parents, from other people, from friends, even from your kids, that was on them, their thoughts and their feelings. It wasn't about a reflection of you. And I want to tell you this. If you want more love in your life, all you have to do is intentionally love more. Love when it's hard to love. You can love other people even when they're hard to love, right? We're all humans. Everybody can be hard to love, except that we are all human. And that doesn't mean that a person's going to walk on you. That doesn't mean that you have to spend time with people that you don't like. It's about how you're choosing to show up and how you're choosing to feel, and making those actions and decisions from a place of love rather than not. You individually are as lovable as you can possibly be, and there's nothing you can do to become more or less lovable. The only thing that can change how much someone loves you is their ability, their decisions, their thinking, and their capacity to love you. But the same is true for you the other way around. Nobody can become more lovable for you. You can try and make them more lovable, but they're already 100% lovable. So it's really not a good use of your time. You're as lovable as you will ever be, as you have always been, and you always will be. So you can stop trying to be more lovable, because you are. I'm going to talk more in later episodes about love related to people pleasing, and we will get more into that topic, but I'm going to leave that here for you today to consider. What if you just chose to love other people? And you don't have to start with everybody. You can start small. It might even be helpful to start with people that are more acquaintances in your life, that you can just choose, I'm going to feel love and kindness and respect towards this person. I'm going to feel it towards myself, even when they screw up, even when they don't meet my expectations, because we're all human. And this is about you. Remember, this isn't giving a gift to other people or letting them off the hook. This is about you and how you want to feel. And that is a gift to yourself. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and your comments on this. And we're going to keep talking through the next few episodes about other aspects of love, your ability to give love, how it impacts relationships. And I'll talk to you next week. Thank you for listening to the Stop Overthinking podcast with Kristen Odegaard. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone else who would benefit from the message. To learn more about working with me and links to social media and free resources, head over to my website, coachwithkristen.com. That's Kristen spelled Kristen. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss future episodes. Have a great week.